Hello, I'm Chris Ingalls. For the next hour, we're taking you inside the work of the King 5 investigators over the past year. Stories that exposed wrongdoing, demanded answers, pushed for change, and this year even helped change state law. We start with some of the most damaging evidence yet showing the chaos inside the state of Washington's largest lockup for young offenders. I obtained sex tapes from inside the facility's walls, proof that security officers are having sex with inmates while leaving their posts unsecured. A warning, this story contains graphic content. A young couple in a private locked room recording an intimate moment. In this day and age, it may not be that uncommon. I've never been in love like this. What's extraordinary about this tape? Where it's happening and who these people are. They're locked away in a linen closet at Washington's maximum security juvenile detention center. The Green Hill School in Chehalis houses males up to the age of 25 convicted of violent crimes. 22-year-old Robbery Thompson is an inmate. Emily Baker is the Green Hill security officer on duty for the night shift. Equally jolting as a sex tape behind bars is the incredible lack of security that allowed it to happen. Records obtained by King 5 show at 4:55 in the morning, during strict lockdown hours, another security officer unlocked Thompson's cell under the pretense that Baker needed the inmate to tidy up the linen closet.
It hurts to be looked at as a killer and a person without sorrow.
As King 5 reported in 2022, Thompson is serving 40 years for the murders of Puyallup shopkeeper Soon Ja Nam and Thompson's accomplice, who he feared would turn him into police. Despite that violent history, records show Thompson spent 18 minutes locked away in the linen closet, alone with Baker, before this happened. A knock at the door that's followed a minute later by a phone call.
Everybody in here is going to talk. No matter how much you think people keep secrets, they don't.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
In all honesty, everybody would feel very uncomfortable.
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to do that.
It's unclear who the man is that's scolding Baker on the phone, but he may be the same employee who unlocked Thompson's cell door. The secret rendezvous seems like something that would be nearly impossible to pull off in a high-security facility with cameras everywhere. But we've learned it's happened more than once.
Oh my God.
This is another sex tape. That's security officer Michelle Goodman last year, 3 months before Baker's tape. She's having sex with a 23-year-old inmate, unidentified in court records, in the employee locker room at Green Hill. Goodman was fired last year for inappropriate non-sexual contact with inmates. The sex tape later came to light in a civil suit filed by the 23-year-old inmate.
Thank you, everyone. You can be seated.
Last month, Goodman faced a charge of custodial sexual misconduct.
Or misconduct, excuse me, in the first degree.
I'm guilty.
And admitted to the sex tape crime. Baker also pleaded guilty to her crimes and was sentenced earlier this month to 7 years in prison.
Parties agreed to recommend to the court that I impose 84 months, followed by the 36 months of community custody.
In addition to their sex crimes, both women admitted to smuggling contraband into Green Hill, like cell phones and marijuana. According to the Lewis County deputy prosecutor who charged the women, it's a complete breakdown in security.
It tells me that there's something wrong with the environment. It shouldn't be happening. This is during lockdown hours, and it tells me that there's more going on that we haven't been able to find out about everything that's going on in Green Hill.
The emphasis at juvenile facilities is rehabilitation. Taxpayers fund job training and education, and programs that should provide rigorous therapy in hopes that young people come out better than they went in. State records show the cost of housing an inmate at Green Hill is $625 per day. That's 3.5 times more than it takes to house adults at Walla Walla, also maximum security.
To think that we can put them in prison and then I hope it's all okay when they get out, and to think they won't be a criminal when they get out, when we train them to be a criminal.
Jill Sharkey, a professor and researcher at the University of California, Santa Barbara, studies juvenile punishment and mental health. She says when detention center staff fails the young inmates, rehabilitation fails too.
100%. It's the culture of the place that allows it. And I think the culture needs to change.
And that wasn't our only Green Hill story in 2025. After a rash of employee arrests at the school, we obtained video exposing some of the dysfunction inside. This story begins with a crime where the key piece of evidence is a burrito. This woman, walking in the distance, has a special delivery. The hooded woman steps up to the gate, rings the intercom, and announces she has a DoorDash delivery. You're watching never-before-seen video of one of the more brazen crimes at the Green Hill School. Green Hill is the state's overcrowded detention facility for young violent offenders, males ages 17 to 25. Once inside, the woman hands a food bag to security. Later, a hooded Green Hill employee appears at the security checkpoint, takes the bag, and walks away. 2 weeks later, it happens again. The same woman on foot says she has a DoorDash delivery. But this time, at a second locked entryway, an alert security officer in a control room just off camera is suspicious.
She said she was DoorDash, and she showed me the food, she took it out.
That's when she recognized the woman in a black hat and hood, as she told police in this recorded interview.
I confronted her. I did say Angel, and she looked at me in shock and she said no, and just looked at me, made this weird front face, and again said no.
This time, when security took the food bag, they opened it to find this: 2 burritos filled not only with meat and cheese, but a potent form of marijuana called wax. The drug-filled burritos were for a young offender, and it wasn't DoorDash making the delivery. The hooded woman was a former Green Hill employee who was fired last year.
Right. Ms. Meisner, it's my understanding it's your intent today to enter pleas of guilt to the original.
Weeks after her arrest in March, in a plea bargain, a Lewis County judge sentenced Angel Marie Meisner to 2 years in prison for smuggling drugs into Green Hill.
What is your plea?
Guilty.
With its school, vocational programs, and intensive counseling, Green Hill is supposed to rehabilitate young offenders.
They're just warehousing them over there. They're not really delivering the rehabilitative services that were the core of this program.
John Braun, the top Republican in the state Senate, says the burrito case highlights the failures at Green Hill.
It just stuns me that somehow we're allowing this to continue.
Consider that this is Meisner's second Green Hill-related conviction in a matter of months. She was among a spate of female employees, at least 6 that we know of, investigated and fired in the past year for improper relationships with Green Hill inmates. Records show some smuggled in contraband like cell phones, shared intimate photos, enabled fights and misconduct, and even videotaped their sex acts with inmates. We obtained these Green Hill surveillance photos of Meisner kissing Robbery Thompson, a 22-year-old serving 40 years for 2 murders. Chehalis police records show she kept him supplied with sex while she worked at Green Hill and drugged burritos after she was fired.
Hello, this is a free call from an incarcerated individual at Washington Correction Center.
Can't wait to be able to hug you without being scared that I'm going to get caught. I love you.
Recordings captured inmate Thompson's phone conversations with Meisner after she was fired.
I really do think that we can help each other to be better people.
These calls reveal Thompson is having sex with another Green Hill staffer, who police identify as Emily Baker. Meisner forgives him because...
And paid attention to me and not just sex or what you can get out of me. The fact that I'm actually valued as a human being.
Count 1, tampering with a witness, and count 2, abuse of office. Do you understand the charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Emily Baker has pleaded not guilty to a long list of charges involving sex, contraband, and an alleged plot to plant drugs in vape and dab pens on a co-worker suspicious of her relationship with Thompson. Why is all this happening in there?
That I really can't tell you. I'm not really sure.
Chehalis Police Chief Randy Kaut can't explain it, but he knows it's keeping his detectives busy. The city in which Green Hill is located investigated a record 21 custodial misconduct cases involving employees last year. Detectives say Meisner, Baker, and Michelle Goodman sealed their fate with sex tapes that are now in police hands. These are some of the suggestive or nude photos that at least 3 more employees sent to inmates. And police investigated other staffers like Nicholas Judson, accused of picking up burrito deliveries and handing them over to Robbery Thompson. Judson has pleaded not guilty to smuggling contraband.
You got to scratch your head and say, why does this keep happening? How do we allow this type of behavior to continue to happen in this facility?
A spokesperson for the Department of Children, Youth and Families, which runs Green Hill, says the cases we profiled are, quote, a direct reflection of our zero tolerance for sexual misconduct and abuse at our facilities. The referrals to law enforcement are happening because Green Hill staff take these reports seriously. We also asked the governor's office about Green Hill. A spokesperson told us that Bob Ferguson inherited a challenging situation there. One thing that he has done is appoint a new secretary of DCYF, Tana Sen. She says that she's added new leadership, security, and training at the facility. Secretary Sen recently sat down with us for an in-depth interview about her proposed solutions at the school. Look for that story coming up in 2026. One more thing about Green Hill. It's costing you taxpayers a lot of money. The state of Washington paid $12 million in 2025 to settle a claim filed by the family of a teenage inmate. Thomas Anderson was 18 when he somehow got access to fentanyl smuggled into the facility in a bag of Skittles, according to police reports. Anderson overdosed in November of 2022 and, according to the lawsuit, laid unconscious in his cell for up to 10 hours. He survived, but with lifelong medical complications. The family blames staff at Green Hill for failing to perform the required overnight checks. We looked into records that show that DCYF has paid more than $18 million in Green Hill claims over the last 5 years.
In my 41 years of being a lawyer, this is the most egregious failure of safety I have seen from a corporation.
A father of 12 loses his life while cleaning out a tanker truck. We found that the company that he drove for tops Washington State's list of severe workplace safety violators. Accused of crimes and released, how long waits for court-ordered mental health treatment are putting communities at risk.
I wasn't on the accelerator. I was still just getting my foot off the brake.
A brutal crime that stunned Washington. We uncovered body cam video that shows Travis Decker just days before his 3 daughters were found dead. Earlier this year, the King 5 investigators exposed a serious mental health crisis facing the state of Washington. Mentally ill people accused of crimes who judges let out of jail wait for months out in the community for the help they need. As Susanna Frame reports, some of those defendants reoffend before the state comes along with services.
2 years ago, Seattle police rolled up to a West Seattle home after a 911 call about a burglar in the area.
Sir, Seattle Police, what's going on? Do you live here?
At the scene, they find a man who quickly becomes combative.
I can do whatever I want. Stay there, you're gonna get tased.
No, I'm not. Police have encountered a person experiencing a mental health crisis.
Under the federal law, I own this property.
He refuses to follow police orders.
I don't need to listen to you.
He won't sit down.
Sit down. You're not gonna tell me what to do. You can pack your bags and leave.
He even chokes his dog.
Don't look at the dog. Put the dog down.
When police finally approach, it's chaos.
Sit down.
You can't see the detail, but officers say the man bit 2 of them.
Stop! Stop! Stop biting! Stop biting!
And tried to gouge their eyes.
There you go. There you go. Was that necessary? Yes, it was. Come on, man. Okay, you're under arrest.
After SPD took Garrett Molino into custody, security tape showed he was the prime suspect for the initial call. Earlier in the evening, you see him entering the home. There he is, breaking into the gate and damaging tens of thousands of dollars worth of sculptures in the yard and home.
And we also have some property damage in the backyard here.
Prosecutors charged Molino with malicious mischief, burglary, assault, and animal cruelty. He had 2 open domestic violence cases on the books as well.
Relax. Get off my property!
Merlino wasn't behind bars long. 3 weeks later, a King County judge released him from jail. He was out on his own recognizance.
While waiting for his trial out of jail, attorneys tell the court Merlino is extremely mentally ill. So with this document, a judge orders DSHS to evaluate him.
You can get in your car and go back!
That made Merlino one of about 1,300 mentally ill defendants in Washington waiting for their trials out of jail, while also waiting on DSHS for an evaluation or psychiatric treatment.
It just doesn't make any sense, frankly.
Gabby Charlton is the prosecutor who handles these cases for King County.
Do you think there's a safety risk with having this group of people out of custody?
Absolutely, because it's an unstable population.
In the last 2 years, the number of defendants waiting out of jail for state help has gone down by about 25%. But the amount of time they've been waiting has gone up. In 2019, out-of-custody suspects waited an average of 3.5 months for state mental health services. Since then, the time has nearly quadrupled. People are now waiting, on average, more than 1.5 years.
It's unfathomable to me that it could take that long.
Garrett, how do you spell your first name?
Garrett Merlino was still waiting for his evaluation when Thurston County deputies got a call he threatened to kill someone.
Unfortunately, today you're going to be coming with us. Why? No! Get away from me! What did I do? Tell me what I'm arrested for.
Clearly in crisis, Merlino accuses the police of trespassing, assault, and making things up.
You're lying, and it's abuse of your power. And I'm not going to handle it.
A few minutes later, the encounter turns violent. Once again, Merlino is on tape, biting and gouging the eyes of officers.
I'm going to tase you. I'm going to tase you. You tried to gouge my eye.
Should Garrett Merlino have been out on the street that night?
Oh, absolutely not.
This is Thurston County Sheriff Derek Sanders.
Watch his mouth.
4 of his deputies were injured on the job that day. Prosecutors charged Merlino with assault, harassment, and resisting arrest. The King 5 investigators have exposed for years the state has struggled to get mentally ill defendants the help they need. A decade ago, DSHS was sued in a case called True Blood for leaving people in jail for months waiting for treatment. In 2023, the state turned it around, drastically reducing wait times for those in jail from 4 to 9 months to an average wait time of 5 days. But wait times for people out in the community went up.
Has the state of Washington just forgotten about these people that are out in the community? What would you say to that?
No, I would say we have not forgotten them.
DSHS officials say a federal judge's order in the True Blood case forces them to give the first available beds to people waiting in jail.
How important would you say this issue is to the state of Washington?
Oh, for us, again, it is a very important issue that we want to be focused on and addressing, much like we did with the True Blood case and everything that we've done there. We want to do the same thing here.
Get on the ground now. No, I'm not.
A year after Garrett Merlino was charged with attacking Seattle police officers and then let out of jail, records show another mentally ill person waiting for an evaluation carried out an act of violence. Jake Berman of Des Moines had been waiting 3 months for a psych exam when he allegedly beat his neighbor bloody, unprovoked. 2 weeks later, at his condo complex, he's accused of brutally beating and stabbing another neighbor to death with a pair of tweezers.
We're going to have to reprioritize what we're doing. That's what it comes down to. The state's got a lot of money. I know that we're going through a crunch right now, and I don't think that excuse is good enough for anybody. I think at the end of the day, citizens of all political backgrounds and makeup want to see this problem fixed.
That was Susanna Frame reporting. It's important to note that most people with mental illnesses do not commit crimes. Research shows they're more likely to be crime victims. But the population we're talking about has already entered the criminal justice system. A judge let them out of jail after being charged with crimes like robbery, assault, and domestic violence. Just ahead, his final days remain a mystery. The King 5 investigators reveal body cam footage of Travis Decker recorded just days before his daughters were killed. It is likely we'll never know how Travis Decker died. Decker was charged over the summer with 3 counts of murder and kidnapping for the deaths of his daughters. His disappearance became the subject of one of the most substantial manhunts in Washington state history. The search came to an end in August when some of Decker's remains were found scattered in a remote wooded area south of Leavenworth, not far from the original crime scene. While we've all seen his face at this point, few have heard him speak. The King 5 investigators obtained body cam video of a police officer talking to Decker after he slammed into a car at a red light in Wenatchee. The video was taken just days before he was accused of murdering his 3 daughters, then taking off in the woods.
What's going on, guys?
How Travis Decker looks, acts, speaks.
Everybody was rolling and everything was going, and all of a sudden I hit him.
It's all here on a Wenatchee police body cam video recorded on May 27th.
I wasn't on the accelerator. I was still just getting my foot off the brake because
That's 3 days before Decker disappeared with his daughters, Peyton, Evelyn, and Olivia. Searchers found the girls murdered days later at a campsite near Leavenworth.
I don't know how all of a sudden it felt like he was sitting at a stop.
Light was green.
Light was green. All the other cars were rolling.
A motorist called police after Decker rammed his Ford Mustang at a stoplight, punching a hole in the bumper.
Air registration. Okay. Sorry if all jacked up.
No big deal.
In the video, Decker admits he does not have insurance or a home address.
Where are you at now?
I'm kind of in transit.
Okay. Where do you get mail right now?
I am receiving it at the Armory over here in Wenatchee.
Decker was living out of his truck at the time, his mental state deteriorating, according to court records. He seemed especially interested in whether the officer will arrest him.
Just so you know, you'll probably get a ticket in the mail for having no insurance, so we're required to do that if we respond to an accident.
Am I going to jail tonight?
Oh, no, you won't go to jail for it. That's an infraction. That's not a criminal offense.
If I didn't have a license and I was driving, would I go to jail?
It depends.
I'm just curious. I don't know this stuff. I don't know the
rules. Well, so it depends.
That conversation came after the driver that Decker hit tried to convince him he would not go to jail for a minor accident. That driver, who declined an on-camera interview, told me I could tell he was not in his full senses. He described Decker's odd questions and answers and his body language. Dashcam video we got last week shows Decker looking almost bored and nonchalant during the incident.
What happens if it's suspended?
That's a crime. Yeah.
Can you go to jail for that?
You can.
Depending on...
It depends on the situation.
It's hard to know what was in Decker's mind 3 days before he disappeared with the girls. But his final words to the police officer gave no hint of what was to come.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. Have a better day.
They're all great days.
What's that?
I said they're all great days.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, be safe out there.
Yeah, thank you.
The manhunt for the former Army Ranger ended thanks to a specially trained Washington State Patrol psychologist who spoke exclusively with King 5. Dr. Stacy Chiquette is one of a handful of people in the world who does what she does. She helps solve the worst of the worst cases involving child abduction, torture, and murder. Using her expertise, Chiquette was able to lead investigators to Decker's remains. Chiquette says she learned everything she could about Decker and put herself in his head. She pored over his personal belongings, books, and even journals.
That's the only way to really do this work, is to become that person in every sense. That way you can view the world the same way that they did.
Chiquette says people in Decker's state of mind typically fight, flee, or freeze, and that it's not uncommon to find them relatively close to where their crime occurred. Well, they are supposed to track cars, not people. How license plate cameras used by police may be quietly feeding data to federal immigration agents, raising serious legal questions. Can a widely used police handgun fire without the trigger being pulled? Inside the decision to ban a duty weapon from officer training across Washington. Human rights advocates are demanding an audit of all state agencies. That follows a King 5 investigation revealing Washington's Department of Licensing was sharing data with ICE for deportation purposes. In this state, that's against the law. Here's Kristen Goodwillie.
Get out. Get out. Advocates and lawmakers say this is the kind of scene the state should have no part of. Federal ICE agents arresting undocumented residents with the help of the state of Washington.
At the end of the day, this impacts us all.
Malou Chavez with the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project says it's not just the Department of Licensing, but every state agency needs to prove they aren't inadvertently helping federal agents track down and arrest undocumented residents.
We are asking for an audit of all systems because we have also seen that data shared with federal government agencies for health care purposes is also being used.
Last month, King 5 exposed the Department of Licensing, or DOL, has data sharing agreements with several Homeland Security agencies, including ICE. In the deals, the feds promised not to use the state's information for immigration enforcement. But since Trump's election in November, we found the federal agencies are searching this a lot more often, up 188%. In that first story, DOL assured King 5 ICE was not misusing state data. Well, last week, I brought them proof. Federal court documents show in May, ICE officers ran a query of Washington State Department of Licensing records for the purpose of identifying and detaining an undocumented Kirkland man.
I'm very concerned because this is explicitly what the Department of Licensing said it wasn't doing, and now we see that it is. I think the focus needs to be on the government agencies. To the extent that they are betraying the public trust, they need to be held accountable for that.
After King 5 provided evidence, DOL and the governor's office shut down ICE's access to the state database right away.
This is all happening to do what? What is the purpose?
Washington state agencies aren't supposed to share private data with the federal government for immigration enforcement. It's against state law. The Keep Washington Working Act prohibits this kind of collaboration unless there's a judicial warrant or a criminal investigation, not related to immigration. Senator Wellman sponsored the 2019 bill.
Of course, I'm disappointed, and I really do believe that we all need to be very much aware that this is going on and to maybe think twice. Ask more probing questions about how information is going to be used.
Wellman says she reached out to the Department of Licensing after my first investigation in July and plans to do so again.
I'm going to follow up on this one with direct contact with the director of the Department of Licensing. And I know the AG is as well.
Another result of our investigation, One America, a human rights organization, is holding a press conference and rally next month to urge officials to better protect Washington citizens and information. Here in Seattle, I'm Kristen Goodwillie, King 5 News.
New data shows federal agencies have also been accessing license plate readers in Washington state. There's concern the feds are using this data collected by local police agencies for those immigration roundups, and that may also be violating state law. You may not even notice them, but they're watching all day, every day. These are Flock brand cameras, an automated license plate reader. Here in Auburn, there are 20 of them mounted along the busiest streets.
We started Flock to eliminate nonviolent crime.
When police officers input a license plate number or make and model of a car, these camera systems spit out information and alerts if the vehicle passes by. Police say Flock is invaluable for finding stolen cars, tracking criminal suspects, and solving crimes. But look who's been tapping into Auburn's Flock system, according to the police department's own records. U.S. Border Patrol is on the department's list of approved agencies to access Auburn's Flock cameras. What do you worry this information is being used for?
I worry it's being used for civil immigration enforcement. I worry that it could be used to just round up people where there's no criminal case whatsoever, and that's a violation of our state law.
Angelina Godoy is director of the University of Washington Center for Human Rights. Her research team just released this report that uncovered thousands of searches by U.S. Border Patrol, according to records from 31 Washington police agencies.
It was actually widespread across our state.
In a statement, Auburn PD says it's still working to determine how Border Patrol was able to gain access to its flock system. And following the new awareness from the UW report, we've begun running monthly reports to identify and revoke access for agencies using it for immigration purposes. Even agencies that didn't approve flock access to immigration agents are learning they too supplied vehicle data to the feds.
That's very concerning. I can't say enough appreciation for the University of Washington for sharing this information with us.
Renton's police chief just learned that immigration agents have been accessing data from Renton's 24 flock cameras through what researchers call side door access. In that scenario, other agencies like Michigan State Police and Florida Highway Patrol accessed Renton's system and thousands of others on behalf of Border Patrol and ICE. ICE and the Border Patrol and other federal agencies have been accessing your data.
That would be absolutely unauthorized on our end. We did not give permissions for any federal agencies to be able to have access into our system.
What are you doing in light of this landing on your desk?
We restricted access for all other agencies, outside agencies, to have access into our network to be able to view any of our flock until we're able to ascertain how that breach was done.
That DOL official was wrong.
The University of Washington's disclosures follow a King 5 investigation in July that revealed the Washington Department of Licensing unknowingly shared licensing data with immigration authorities. That violates the 2019 Keep Washington Working Act.
Local law enforcement agencies in our state are prohibited by state law from using state resources to collaborate with civil immigration enforcement.
The University of Washington says many of the data releases may be unintentional, but not always. In Southwest Washington and Klickitat County, the sheriff's office has been seeking to install flock cameras.
Our country has absolutely been invaded.
Sheriff Bob Songer is already on record in full support of the immigration crackdown.
I want to send a message to the ICE. If you need any help at all, put me on speed dial.
Researchers tell us that only 3 Washington law enforcement agencies had no improper searches of their flock systems: the Kittitas County Sheriff's Office and police departments in both Mount Vernon and Olympia. Since our original report, several Washington cities have moved to turn off their license plate camera systems. That includes the city of Olympia, which disabled its 15-camera program in December. The move followed the release of video recorded by a bystander of federal agents detaining a man downtown. The video raised renewed scrutiny in the city over whether local surveillance tools are being used as backdoors by immigration enforcement agents. Sodium nitrite is now banned in the state of Washington. The substance that could easily be purchased online was used by dozens of young people across the country to die by suicide, including Tyler Smith, who the law is named after. The push to pass the law came after a King 5 investigation showed Amazon sold the product despite repeated warnings about its misuse. King 5 previously confirmed at least 30 cases nationwide where young people died by suicide using sodium nitrate purchased through Amazon. Eventually, most of the products were removed from the site, but there was no ban of the sale here in Washington until this law was signed in April. Tyler's mom says it won't bring back her son, but it may help others.
I know it will. I know that there will be awareness. And that's really my driving force for it, behind it.
Tyler's family is one of 24 families now taking legal action against Amazon, alleging that it knowingly continued sales despite awareness of the substance misuse for suicide. Amazon has defended itself in each suit, saying the company is not at fault. It is the people who died by suicide who misused that product.
And everybody says, as long as you keep your finger off the trigger, you're safe. And then that doesn't come true. That is scary.
Can a police handgun fire without the trigger being pulled? Our investigation raises questions about a weapon carried by law officers across Washington. A father of 12 dies on the job doing work the state says he was never trained to do. His employer now tops Washington's list of worst safety violators. We all know that police officers face many dangers on the streets. They shouldn't have to fear their own handgun. But there's growing evidence that the gun that hundreds of Washington officers carry could fire without the trigger being pulled. The King 5 investigators obtained video from Spokane that first raised concerns here in Washington.
We got medics and officers in around.
It's a frightening call for police to respond to.
Hang in there, Currington.
A fellow officer down, blood flowing from a gunshot wound to his leg. There's confusion.
You sure there was no shooter?
Over who fired the shot.
Sir? There was a shooter?
Yeah. There wasn't? It just went off? Okay.
It just went off, okay.
Police officer Kevin Currington wasn't in a gun battle. He was simply locking the gate for the evening at Northside Park in LaGrange, Texas last June. Evidence soon pointed to his own duty weapon.
SIG. 9mm.
Somehow firing in the holster.
You did shoot yourself? It just went off, right? So there is no suspect.
Officer Currington survived the shooting and became possibly the latest victim of the Sig Sauer P320 handgun. A version of the SIG P320 is the handgun of the United States military, and hundreds of thousands more are used by civilians and police.
Shooters, watch your threat.
But today, you won't find a single one on the firing line here.
3 left side, 3 right side.
At the facility that trains all police officers in Washington state. That's because the executive director of the Washington Criminal Justice Training Commission temporarily banned the P320 in October, even though several police departments want their recruits to use them.
We need to bring some people together and have a conversation about what's next. We cannot afford to have a recruit get hurt. And everybody says, as long as you keep your finger off the trigger, you're safe. And then that doesn't come true. That is scary.
Her team, a mix of firearms and law enforcement experts, has been investigating incidents involving the P320.
Just recently added some stuff from a local agency that had some issues and went away from the Sig Sauer.
Through records requests, King 5 obtained some of the evidence they're evaluating, starting with this October incident at the Training Commission's firing range in Spokane. Zooming the video, we see a Yakima police recruit drawing his P320. There's a cloud of dust to his right as a bullet strikes the ground, narrowly missing the trainee next to him. This report said the recruit's trigger finger was not on the trigger or in the trigger guard. That statement from a firearms instructor is evidence the P320 fired on its own.
There was an instructor right there, and he was actually watching the recruit, and the recruit did not have his finger on the trigger.
That October incident launched the Training Commission's investigation, which turned up a handful of other cases in Washington, none with injuries.
What the hell?
And many more nationwide.
My gun just went off.
Did you enjoy law enforcement?
100%. That was my goal as a young child.
This former sheriff's deputy was one of the victims.
In my patrol car, getting caught up on reports, whatever, go to get out of my car, getting ready to take my gun off in its holster. As I'm removing my admin holster, it shot me straight in the femur.
That's a law firm's animation of the 2018 incident that ended the 7-year career of Loudoun County, Virginia deputy Marcy Vadnais.
I lost my career, my marriage, still to date, it still affects me mentally, physically. I should not have to worry about if I manipulate a weapon inside a holster, fully seated in a holster, that it's going to shoot me in my thigh.
What do you think that we're still talking about this all these years later?
There's a serious problem with this gun. It should not be on store shelves to this date. Somebody is going to lose their life.
Sig Sauer did not respond to our messages for a comment, but it has fiercely defended the P320.
So we have representatives here from Sig Sauer. We reached out.
In this November meeting with the Training Commission Work Group,
holsters wide apertures, that's a very big concern.
Sig Sauer employees offered alternative explanations for why P320s fired in some of those videos. And it says lab tests by Sig and the Army have never resulted in an unintended discharge.
It simply cannot happen. Okay, that sequence of components in there and the way that they are engineered does not allow this gun to just fire on its own.
That's their truth and that's their facts, and I'm not here to argue with that. I just want to see all the facts.
How many cases like this are you aware of?
Well over 200 at this point.
Connecticut attorney Jeff Bagnell has filed 24 lawsuits against SIG, including one that ended in a confidential settlement for Marcy Vadnais.
I've been calling for this gun to be recalled for at least 8 years now.
But federal law protects gun manufacturers from mandatory recalls, even though Bagnell and others argue the gun's striker firing mechanism is a design flaw.
In the newer lawsuits, we're seeing the municipalities being named as a defendant because they had knowledge of the problem, and yet they still put it into the hands of their police officers.
Meaning, a decision to permanently ban the P320 at the Academy would reverberate through law enforcement across the state.
Because it is so unpredictable. It's literally like setting a ticking time bomb wherever it's sitting, waiting for it to go off.
And early in 2025, the Academy did make the decision to permanently ban the P320. Sig Sauer is confronting a new legal challenge here in Washington state. A federal lawsuit filed in November seeks class action status on behalf of residents who purchased the company's handgun, the P320. The lawsuit describes the weapon as, quote, defective. Sig Sauer declined to comment for all of King 5's stories, but has said repeatedly the P320 cannot fire without a trigger pull. He went to work and never came home. Ahead, the lawsuit accusing a chemical company of ignoring safety warnings and the family demanding accountability. A father of 12 lost his life in 2024 cleaning out a tanker truck, a job the state of Washington says he'd never been trained to do. The company he drove for tops Washington State's list of severe workplace safety violators. As Kristen Goodwillie reports, that company now faces a lawsuit.
Dad is dead. Those two words, dad and dead, do not belong in the same sentence. My world just shattered.
Victor Voloshin's children say as a truck driver from Pasco, he was the hardest worker they knew. He immigrated from Ukraine 30 years ago and took pride in providing for his family. His kids never thought he'd lose his life doing just that.
I still can't wrap my head around what happened that day. I almost still don't believe it.
In the days before his death, on June 7th of last year, Victor had been hauling deadly cargo. He spent his last 48 hours driving a semi-tanker with toxic emulsified sulfur for Two Rivers Terminal. According to a lawsuit filed by the Voloshin family, a dispatcher ordered Victor to clean out the truck, a hazardous job he'd never been trained to do.
I learned that he got there around 4 p.m., started cleaning out the tanker by himself.
This security footage reveals Victor's last moments. He went into the tanker's manhole, completely unprotected. No safety gear, no supervision, no emergency plan. Victor died inside the truck, overcome by toxic fumes. Firefighters and family were called to the scene, forced to watch it all play out.
And that's when they came to us and told us that my dad has passed away.
Should this have even happened in the first place?
This should have never happened.
Absolutely not.
This was 100% preventable. And then I found out that they had previous incidences with injuries, with hurting other people year after year.
It was this kind of workplace safety failure that earned Two Rivers a distinction no company wants: to be a part of the state's severe violators list. These are the companies with the most safety violations issued by Labor and Industries. The top 10 include industries like roofing, logging, and asbestos management. At the very top of this list is the company that hired Victor to drive a semi-truck, Two Rivers Terminal. It ranks as the state's most dangerous employer. Since 2022, racking up 106 violations.
How do you feel, Lily, knowing that Two Rivers Terminal has the most violations of any company in the state?
It's just devastating.
The company's violations follow a deadly pattern, from failing to provide protective equipment and proper training to ignoring confined space regulations like those that led to Victor's death. Nearly half of all citations warn how serious these violations are, that employees can be seriously injured or killed. With all of these violations, you might be wondering, why is this company still in business?
So companies have rights just like people have rights. We have the ability to make places safe, but we don't necessarily have the ability to just shut them down.
L&I can issue fines. Two Rivers owes the state more than $1 million.
So yes, they can.
Employment law expert Liz Ford says it's a question of whether the fines are making any difference.
It appears the fines are not sufficient to deter the conduct because it's not deterring the conduct.
Victor's death was not an isolated incident. Just 1 year earlier, another employee fell 12 feet after exposure to the same toxic chemicals. He suffered life-threatening injuries.
It almost felt like history was repeating itself, that this company did not correct its mistakes, that all they cared about was their business. They don't care about people coming home.
I called, emailed, and went down to Two Rivers Terminal for a comment and have not heard back. We do know the company is disputing L&I citations and is trying to move the Voloshin family's lawsuit to federal court.
In my 41 years of being a lawyer, this is the most egregious failure of safety I have seen from a corporation.
Sim Osborne represents the Voloshin family in their wrongful death lawsuit against Two Rivers. He says the company knowingly ignored critical safety warnings.
This is a case that never should have happened. If Two Rivers had followed the rules and just had the most base safety practices, Victor Voloshin would never have died.
Victor was an entertainer, the rock of his large family. His children say the grief is unbearable. They worry most about their mother left without the family's sole provider. Children still live in the home without a father. 16 grandchildren will grow up without a grandfather.
Yeah, the first month after my dad passed, my mom asked me, "Can I go buy groceries? You think we have enough for groceries?" And that breaks my heart.
The family had no idea Two Rivers was the worst safety violator in the state. They say the company must change to prevent another family's devastation.
We have to bury him. He's not coming back. And that's such a hard thing to accept. But I do want justice.
That was Kristen Goodwillie reporting. There are 88 companies on the list. If you end up on it, L&I says it's not just fines. There are more inspections and increased oversight to bring those companies into compliance. Thanks for watching this King 5 Investigator Special. I'm Chris Ingalls. Our team is dedicated to serving the public interest through watchdog journalism. If you'd like to submit a tip, email investigators@king5.com. Thanks for spending the hour with us, and look for more investigative journalism in 2026.